You wake up. Your life is crisis, no emergency, and yet somewhere deep inside, there's an urge you don't know how to explain. A quiet impulse to disappear, to quit, to leave, to burn everything down and start over. Not because you're unhappy, but because something feels dead. And the most confusing part is this: you don't even know what you're running from. On paper, your life makes sense. You have stability, predictability, a routine that works. Other people might even envy you. But inside, there's a restlessness, a dull pressure in the chest, a feeling of being trapped in a life that technically fits, but no longer moves you. At night, your mind wanders. You imagine leaving everything behind, a new city, a different version of yourself, a life that feels more alive. Then the guilt arrives. Why would I want to leave this? What's wrong with me? So you push the feeling down. You remind yourself to be grateful. You tell yourself to be responsible. But the restlessness doesn't disappear. It just goes quiet and settles deeper. Here's what most people never get told. This urge isn't immaturity. It isn't self-sabotage, and it isn't a personal flaw. It's a psychological signal. Your brain is reacting to something real, even if you don't have words for it yet. You're not broken for wanting to burn down a stable life. You're responding to stagnation that's disguised as safety. The human brain didn't evolve for comfort alone. It evolved to adapt, to explore, to move toward meaningful challenges. When your environment stops changing, your brain doesn't relax. It enters a quiet form of alarm. Your dopamine system, the system responsible for motivation and meaning, starts to go silent. Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about forward movement. When life becomes predictable, you don't feel sad, you feel flat, numb, restless, disconnected. Your brain doesn't say, "I need growth." It says, "Something is wrong. Escape." So the urge to burn everything down isn't destruction. It's your nervous system searching for novelty, agency, and expansion. There's also an identity conflict happening beneath the surface. At some point, you became someone reliable, responsible, sensible. That identity kept you safe. It worked. But identities aren't meant to be permanent. Over time, another version of you formed quietly underneath, a potential self. Not reckless, not dramatic, just unexplored. The tension you feel isn't between gratitude and selfishness. It's between who you are now and who you never allowed yourself to become. And because your brain doesn't have a clean language for this conflict, it uses extremes. It doesn't say, "Let's adjust." It says, "Burn it all down." Because radical change feels like the fastest way to feel alive again. Psychology calls this escape motivation. When a life feels psychologically confining, the mind overestimates the value of total exit. Not because it's the right move, but because small changes feel impossible. So the imagination jumps to the only option that feels powerful. But this isn't about quitting your life. It's about listening to it more accurately. The thought says, "I want to burn everything down." The signal underneath says, "I am understimulated and over-contained." When you separate the signal from the story, the urgency softens. Then ask yourself something simple. Where has agency disappeared? Where does life feel automatic? Where are you performing instead of participating? Loss of agency is one of the fastest paths to quiet despair. Your brain doesn't need chaos, it needs new input, controlled novelty. Learning something with no productivity goal, creating without evaluation, moving through your day differently on purpose. This reactivates motivation without triggering fear. There's also something else that needs to happen: grief. Not dramatic grief, quiet grief.
for the unlived versions of yourself. Not everything you could have been will be lived, and pretending otherwise creates restlessness. Unacknowledged grief doesn't disappear, it turns into pressure. Finally, stability needs to be redefined. Stability doesn't mean stillness. Healthy stability includes movement, exploration, periodic reinvention. A system that cannot adapt eventually collapses. So do lives. Think of your life like a closed room. When air stops circulating, pressure builds. The solution isn't explosion, it's ventilation. Small openings, new pathways, fresh air. The urge to burn it all down was never the answer. It was the alarm telling you that something inside you needs to move again. If this restlessness feels familiar, you're not ungrateful. You're not broken. You're responding to a life that stopped growing with you. You don't need to destroy everything. You need to listen, honestly, patiently, without shame. Sometimes the most mature realization is this: fine is no longer enough. And if this video put words to something you've felt but never named, take a moment to sit with it. You can like the video if it resonated, subscribe if you want more quiet psychology-based reflections like this, and let me know in the comments, have you ever felt the urge to leave a life that looked